For more, let's bring in Jamil Jaffer, founder and director of the National Security Institute at George Mason University. Welcome back to the show. These strikes, as we mentioned, the first in 2 months, tensions at an all-time high. What do you think was the ultimate breaking point that ended this peace agreement tonight?
Well, look, obviously there's been a long-standing conflict between Hezbollah and Israel. Hezbollah, a terrorist group supported by Iran, backed by Iran, built, frankly, by Iran. And Iran has demonstrated that right here by saying an attack on Hezbollah is an attack on us. We're going to respond by directly attacking Israel. So now there can be no question about what Hezbollah is, not that there was really before this in any event. But what's clear now is that Iran has been using Hezbollah as a proxy for its attacks. It gets upset when Hezbollah is attacked by Israel in response for those attacks there. And now we've seen what happens. We've seen that Israel is going to respond, regardless of what the United States says, directly against Iran if need be, if attacked. And that's what we've seen here.
What do you see happening in the region next, Jamil? Will there be more strikes, in your opinion?
Well, I think there's very little doubt that this conflict is going to continue. The problem, of course, is that Iran refuses to put aside its nuclear weapons program. Iran refuses to put aside its missile attack capability, and it refuses to respond, refuses to keep threatening its neighbors, stop threatening its neighbors, whether that's Israel or UAE or Bahrain or now Saudi Arabia today, apparently. It continues to conduct strikes against, American allies and friends and partners in the region. And so it seems it's hard to imagine how this comes to a close, particularly because Iran doesn't appear to be willing to give up its nuclear program, which is a bottom line position for the United States.
Jamil, I don't have to tell you, here in the U.S., Americans are feeling the effects of this war, whether it's prices surging on gas, groceries. Citizens are on edge, travel, fuel, all of it. What do you think tonight's strikes mean for the average American, so many of them struggling?
Well, look, I think the average American is concerned about the conflict that's taking place in the Middle East. They're concerned, to your point, about inflation, about gas prices, about the ability to put food on their table for their families. But, of course, the simplest solution to addressing the oil price problem is for the United States to do what we've said we've done, what we do in the region for decades and have done in the region for decades, which is to keep the Strait of Hormuz open to traffic, open to oil flowing out of that region. Even though we don't get a lot of our oil from that region, it does affect the world price of oil. The challenge is that we've allowed that strait to be closed by Iran for the last few months in response to our conflict with them. That, of course, is an unacceptable situation. The president has made clear he wants that strait open. And Iran, by the way, agreed to open the strait in the beginning of this original ceasefire. They've never actually done that. So the president needs to hold them to account for what they've agreed to do and make them reopen the strait. And if they're not going to do that, then he needs to open the strait by force if need be.
President Trump called Prime Minister Netanyahu a few hours ago. He demanded Israel not retaliate after Iran's missile attack today. They did retaliate. Does this damage the U.S.-Israel relationship?
Well, look, obviously, President Trump and Prime Minister Netanyahu are not going to always say things eye to eye. That happens all the time with the relationships between allies and partners and friendly nations. And at the end of the day, the president's going to take his position that he thinks is right for the United States, as he should. And Prime Minister Netanyahu is going to do what he thinks is right for Israel. The challenge, I think, for Prime Minister Netanyahu is he's being attacked from the north by Hezbollah. He's responded there. And now Iran is getting in the fight because their proxy, Hezbollah, is being attacked. And so, it seems hard to imagine a world in which Prime Minister Netanyahu could survive in office or as the leader of Israel if he doesn't respond to a direct attack against his country from Iran.
Iran's Revolutionary Guard has warned any repeated aggression would trigger broader attacks on American targets, Israeli jets over Iranian airspace. Jamil, how severely are U.S. bases and naval blockade ships at risk, at least in the next few hours?
Well, look, I think that there's always a risk. I think Iran realizes, though, if they try to attack the United States directly, that's going to likely provoke a response from President Trump, just like a direct attack on Israel resulted in a response from Prime Minister Netanyahu. I think they are concerned about that. They don't want to try and upset the apple cart. Of course, right now, they've gotten a ceasefire basically for nothing, right? We agreed to engage in a ceasefire, stop the attacks on Iran if they would reopen the Strait of Hormuz. They didn't do that. We still haven't gone back to the attacking them. Now, we're saying we're working on a deal. The president's trying to get a deal done. But again, that deal turns on Iran being willing to give up its nuclear program and its enrichment capabilities and that nearly 1,000 pounds, 400 kilograms of highly enriched uranium. They're not willing to give that up. And so if they're not going to do that deal, the president's going to have one of two choices. Either give them the deal they want without what he wants, or go back to attacking Iran. We keep going back and forth about and extending the ceasefire, but they're not doing their part.
Yeah, this is very complicated, and the next few hours crucial when it comes to this conflict. Jamil Jaffer, founder and director of the National Security Institute at George Mason University. Thank you again.
Thanks, Hannah.